Welcome to Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debbie Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome today. It's Tuesday. If you're watching us live, I thank you. It's Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific time here in sunny California. We're in Burbank, and we're right across the street from Warner Brothers Studios. And unfortunately, there's a strike going on, and by right for those riders. So we're all driving by and giving them a honk of a little bit of reassurance that we're with them. But there's no parking in this area, I have to say. But anyway, this is where we are in sunny Burbank, coming to you live. If you're not watching live, welcome as well. It's a good subject today, so stick with us. I would love for you guys to get involved with the show today, but first I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. You've reached Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. This is conversations that connect to a healthier you. It's why I do this, is strictly so I can get experts in their field of health and wellness to get some information out to the audience in the simplest terms to help you kind of gear your life into longevity with quality. Because if anybody knows me, that's what I'm all about, and that's sort of my phrase that I've coined to help people achieve that. And a little bit about me is that I am a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, a health and a nutrition coach. So what does that mean? So I call my company Balanced Life because you have to find balance in everything we do in life, including the food that we eat being very and the most important. We're going to talk really heavily about that today. But there are other things in life that have to come into alignment in order for us to have a life of longevity with quality. I call it aging young. And in order to do that, it sometimes takes a coach. We all need coaches to get us on track. That's why there are personal trainers to keep you moving, to experts in the field to keep you going, to have the tools that you need to put you in the right direction, and to be your cheerleader to keep everything alive. And so that's what I do for people. I work one-on-one, I work with groups, I do workshops, I do talks with groups. So if you need me, I would love to help you. All you have to do is go to my website, which again is Balanced Life by Debbie, DEBI.com. And there you'll find a little pop-up, a free little gift talking about food. It's a 3-day detox, and it's really healthy. It's like jump into spring with this detox. You're going to feel lighter on your feet. It just gives you a jump start. You know, bikini season's coming up really quick here, so bathing suit season, I should say, in general. So if you want to get a free gift, go on there and then reach out to me and let's have a conversation. I do a 50-minute free intake, a little health history with you that we can see what's going on, and then we can talk about the best plan to get you moving forward in a life of longevity with quality. So today, also, I'd like you to get involved with my live show if you're watching live. If you are, you can call us, and the number here is 323-524-2599. Again, that's 323-524-2599. If you're not watching live, or you are and you don't want to call, but you still want to become part of the conversation, because that's what my show is all about. It's getting it not just between the two people or whoever is the podcast has as a guest, but to get people on the outside involved too. So in order to do that, you can go to my Facebook page, again, Balanced Life by Debbie, DEBI. You can make a comment or ask a question there, or my Instagram, same place. And myself or my guest will get back to you after the show. And it can be any time because I have questions that get answered sometimes 2 years, 3 years out. I've been doing this 7 years. So way before podcasting was podcasting, it was called like live streaming radio back then, which still exists, but we just kind of segued into the whole podcast realm. So I'm glad you're here today. Stick with us because I want to tell you a little bit about the show. So gut health. What exactly does that mean? And what do terms like leaky gut, inflammation, and dysbiosis mean? And how do they play into autoimmune diseases? My guest today, Brandi Muilenburg, can answer all these questions plus more. Brandi is a registered respiratory care practitioner with over 10 years of critical care experience. She is a certified nutritional health coach, functional nutrition doctoral candidate, an author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. Brandi is the founder of Functionally Autoimmune, where she helps people around the world relieve autoimmune symptoms through gut health and nutrition. She also operates a podcast of the same name. Not to mention that Brandi is also the founder of Cesara Olio de Oliva, her extra virgin olive oil company, where she has partnered with 2 centuries old farms in Italy to grow, harvest, and bottle her amazing Italian EVOO. So let's talk gut health. So will you please welcome my guest, Brandi Muilenburg to the show. Hi, Brandi.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? There's our audience.
Good. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you for taking the time out of your day and your practice for joining me to lend some expertise to the audience. I really appreciate it. Where are you located, Brandi? I forgot to ask you that. I think you're up north.
Yeah, so I am actually in Boise, Idaho.
Oh.
So kind of on the West Coast, a little bit inland though, but we're in the mountains out here.
And well, welcome. So what is that? Are you 2 hours ahead?
We're mountain time, so we're an hour ahead of Pacific.
Okay, so only 1 hour.
Just an hour ahead of you guys.
So thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon. So before we get started on the importance of gut health versus autoimmune diseases and how that all connects, I want to hear your story. So, and I'm going to go deep. So we're going to go way back to where you're from, where you were born, what your childhood was like, education, and how you landed for what you're doing today. So let's hear your story.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it can be a really long story, but I'll make it entertaining and short as I can. So I actually grew up down south. So I was born in Alabama, lived there until I was about 10 or 11 years old. Around that time, my parents got divorced. And when that happened, my brother and I lived with my dad, who got relocated for work to Florida. So I always say I grew up in Florida because those were kind of my teenage, high school years. So when you think about kind of growing up and all of those things, you tend to think of that time. So I spent all of my teenage and high school years in Florida, grew up on the beach, doing all those fun things. And then when I was, towards the end of high school, I actually met my husband, who was in the Marine Corps at the time. We've been married 25 years now, this month, actually.
Wow.
And so we, of course, after we got married, embarked on a journey of moving to different places, California, Washington, kind of all over with the military, which is part of the military world. And we then, of course, welcomed 2 kids into the world who are fantastic. They're my world. But yeah, growing up, it was just me and my brother. We were considered a small family in the South. There was just 4 of us, my parents and my brother and I. And as you can imagine, growing up down there, even though we were on the beach and we were outside and we were doing so much physical activity, we don't eat the healthiest food down there all the time. And so I grew up on a very, very Southern diet of fried foods. Luckily, I had grandparents that were very involved, that were very much home chefs who cooked amazing vegetables and protein dishes for us all the time when we were with them. So that helped a ton. But yeah, the Southern diet was real. I also have a lot of family in New Orleans. So if you've been to New Orleans and you've had the food there, that's kind of what I grew up on. So, growing up, I was a very active child. I danced from the time I was 3 until I graduated high school. Everything from ballet to tap to anything the dance studio offered, I participated and competed in. So I was, doing that for most of my childhood, along with cheerleading, and so very active. And, those things were just a part of my life. They weren't anything that I thought was doing anything helpful or harmful to me. It was just something that I did. As I became a teenager, I actually started having a couple of health issues with my stomach. The doctor would tell me I had just IBS, things like that. And they all told me it was stress related. And so I just assumed I was a stressed teenager. That, no big deal, just I'm a stressed teenager and this is what it's like. Um, as I got a little bit older, met my husband. We were in California when our first child was born, who is now 24 years old, has herself graduated from college and is getting married next year.
Oh, congrats.
During that time, I realized that some of those symptoms were actually getting quite a bit worse. And so not bad enough that they were affecting my life, but getting a little bit worse, that I was kind of noticing them a little bit more.
Did you ever change your diet once you got out of your family situation, or you just stayed with the familiar because why not?
Yeah.
At that point, you probably didn't realize there was a gut connection to the way you were feeling.
You're right. I didn't understand the connection to how I was feeling. I didn't really understand, unfortunately, I didn't grow up in an environment that taught you that like food was medicine or any of that kind of stuff. So to me, it was just, that's what I grew up on and that's what I ate. My food did change only because I moved from Florida to California. So that's literally across the country. And so food just changes as you change locations. And so what I found though was that we were, instead of eating a bunch of Southern food, we were eating a bunch of Mexican food, which,
Oh, that's
which
easy out
trust
here.
me,
Yes.
if I could, I would eat it every single day of my life
Well,
because it's
yeah,
delicious.
it is. It's easy to eat. And we just celebrated Cinco de Mayo on Friday. And oh my goodness, we waited an hour and a half in a Mexican restaurant that otherwise would, but it's very prevalent out here and very good and very easy to eat. But there are healthy ways to do it. It's just, you have to be informed. And I take it from what you're saying, at that age, you didn't realize that connection, so it didn't matter. You weren't trying to
Right.
feel better through food because you didn't know food could do that for you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I still was in the belief that my stomach issues were caused by stress, because that's what I had been told,
yeah.
all that time was, oh, well, your stomach issues are stress related. So, here I had a new baby. I'd moved across the country. So it never occurred to me at that point that food was what was causing it. It really just occurred to me that I was stressed and tired. And that's why I was having these issues. And so we didn't always make the best food choices. Fast food, all of those things happened because we were a very young military family who was always on the run, and that's just kind of what we were used to doing. And so yeah, that connection was not there. As time went on, and we moved several more times, but we ended up landing in Seattle, Washington, which is where my husband is from, where he grew up and lived his whole life. And so again, food is different there. Now you're in kind of seafood and salmon is everywhere. And so again, our diets changed based on our location, but not because I had really thought a ton about it. My husband deployed a couple of times to Iraq during that period, which again were very stressful periods of time.
Oh, I bet.
What I noticed though during this time was that my symptoms were increasing. So before it was just kind of IBS type symptoms. Now I was gaining weight. I was having headaches. I was very tired. No matter what I did, I couldn't get over the fatigue. My hair was falling out. I was having all of these symptoms that were just compiling on each other. And, I was still kind of trying to convince myself that it was just stress related with everything going on. And of course, I saw doctors, I went to specialists, I did everything that I possibly could because I knew that it wasn't good that I was feeling that way. And the unfortunate part was that I was told that everything was fine, nothing was wrong. I was a tired mother, it was stress. I was just getting older. There was never a
Just
conversation of food. There was never a conversation of
irks me.
autoimmune disease. Every time it was like your blood work looks fine, you're healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
blood
mean, I
work
had
is
some,
just an average taken from, it's so not individualized. And
right.
medical doctors, Western doctors, are not necessarily schooled. And when you talk to them, it's really no fault of theirs, really, unless they choose
Yeah,
to change it. But they're not schooled in nutrition and
right.
how food is medicine and can be medicine,
Hmm.
and how to maybe start looking at what you're eating and what you're putting in your body. Lifestyle things, yes, for sure, too. But,
Yeah,
stress, adrenal fatigue, all of that. But what you're putting in your body is the start and the first and foremost. They are not trained that way.
yeah,
And so they keep putting it back on us. Oh, you're just tired, you're depressed, you're this, you postpartum, whatever they want to throw back at you, they can throw back at you, but they don't look really at what's going on with you individually. They just make this general statement that, and it's
yeah,
part of it. It should be part of every I'm dating or was I dated a physician lately, and he just recently told me, he said, that's not part, diet is not part
yeah,
of, or it wasn't part of my education growing up. It wasn't something I was concerned with for myself or my patients. And it's like, but you have to be, because that's the cure
yeah,
to everything.
yeah,
So it really frustrates me to know that in this day and age. I would think that I think there is a new crop of physicians coming up that are being trained sort of. There's a crossover between Eastern and Western, and understanding the correlation to food and all these diseases that have popped up and gotten worse in this, obese nation that we have because of not
yeah,
paying attention. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just, you've
yeah.
that was about the fourth time you mentioned these doctors pushing, shoving you aside, and it just irks me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I am there with you. And I will say, not to fuel the fire, but I saw over 40 different doctors and specialists over a period of
that's
time.
ridiculous.
Um, yeah, that all said the same thing. Again, I'm not blaming them. They did the best that they knew how to do at the time, which unfortunately for me was not much. But um, yeah, it was very frustrating. It was a period of time where I felt like I was falling apart and I didn't know why. And every doctor that I went to basically said, you should be so happy that you're healthy. There are a lot of people out there not healthy. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm really grateful, but I don't feel healthy.
No,
Like,
we
I
know
was,
ourselves so well. We know
yeah,
better than anybody when something's amiss, when something's not right, because
yeah,
and you don't want to get used to feeling bad, because then that's your new normal, and you don't want that. You want, a high quality of how you feel, because that's the only way that you can get joy in life. Otherwise, it's just going to bring you down in every aspect.
yeah.
What kind of doctor did you finally go to that diagnosed you, and what was it that you were diagnosed
Yeah.
with?
So actually, I ended up diagnosing myself 8 years before a physician actually diagnosed me.
Oh, good for you.
Um, and what happened was after my second child was born, my health just hit rock bottom. I had a C-section, everything that could possibly, my body just couldn't take anymore. And so I realized I had to do something and that there was something physically wrong with me. And what I failed to mention on purpose from my childhood was something that I remembered at this point was when I was about 3 years old, I had ear infections that were chronic, and I had tubes put in my ears 3 times because they could not get the ear infections to stop and they couldn't figure out why I was having them. Lucky for me and
Dairy.
my parents, I had a very progressive pediatrician at that time because we're talking like 80s, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is like 1980s. So when I say progressive, that's what I mean is this is not a time that people thought about food allergies. Um, But he actually tested me for food allergies because they couldn't figure out why I was having ear infections. And it turned out that I was allergic to wheat. And when my family pulled wheat out of my diet, my ear infections disappeared.
Of
And
course.
so I didn't eat wheat for several years as a child. And then of course, as you become a teenager, you just start eating what you want and it kind of goes to the wayside. And so for something triggered my memory of that during this time. And I thought, you know what, there's no way that this allergy just disappeared. I've probably been torturing myself with this for years. So the very first thing I did is I went gluten-free. I have to get the wheat out of my diet. I'm going gluten-free to try and remove as much as I can. And I'm a researcher by nature. That's just who I am. And so at this point, I had already been working in healthcare as a respiratory therapist for several years. I felt like I had a good grasp of what health and wellness looked like. I felt like I had a good grasp of anatomy and physiology. I did have an amazing resource of tons of doctors, from cardiologists to burn doctors to trauma surgeons. I mean, I had so many around me that had nothing to do with what I was going through, but were a source of conversation. Like I could go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? What's your thoughts on that? And it was always just interesting to get their perspective, because some of them would say, well, that's completely unrelated. And some of them would say, oh, it's possible. And so I constantly was asking questions and researching. And so I actually self-diagnosed myself with celiac disease and Hashimoto's, again, 8 years before I was ever diagnosed officially.
Wow.
I started treating myself based off of everything that I could find that I could do on my own, which was all food related. It was, pre and probiotics. It was taking all processed foods, fast foods out of my diet. It was making sure that I was gluten free. It was getting enough sleep. It was getting enough exercise. Everything that I could do that I had control of my body, that's what I started to do. And I immediately started feeling better, although it wasn't 100%. I actually ended up finding a functional medicine doctor who my insurance did not cover, but I just wanted to see if they could give me an answer. So I was willing to pay whatever it took.
Another thing that irks me, functional
Yeah.
medicine doctors don't take insurance. So it's really, functional medicine is for the wealthy, not for the average person who's living. I'm not saying everybody who's average is living paycheck to paycheck, but you can easily eat up some savings with tests and going
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole that it takes to go to a functional medicine doctor. There's something very wrong in our country that's what the only way we can be healthy and pay a fortune in insurance, but then be given medicines that keep us sick or make us sicker. So another one, another thing that. So with the functional medicine doctor, what happened?
So I went to him and gave him my background, told him what I knew. At this point, I was actually going through the certification program for my nutritional health coaching certification. So I was in the midst of that anyway, because I figured if no one else can help me, I'm going to learn and do everything that I can to help myself.
And it's IIN, right? You did the same
Yes.
thing I did, the Institute for
Yes.
Integrative Nutrition. Shout out, yay, that's my certifications as well.
Yeah, it was a great program.
Good.
And it was completely, I completely did it to help, just to try and figure out how to help myself. That was my goal at the beginning, and that completely changed by the end, but that was my complete goal for joining. And I told him I was in this program, gave him all my history, all these things. And I said, listen, I think I have celiac and I think that I have Hashimoto's, and that's kind of what I've been self-treating through food and lifestyle. And he said, okay, well, every one of your symptoms sounds just like that. Let's do tests. Let's find out what we can find. We did, everything. We did gut health test, which we'll talk about further, but it's stool testing.
Mm-hmm.
We did labs. Everything you could possibly test. I was like, do it all, run all of it. I want to see anything that you can find. And within a week, he called me and he said, you were 100% spot on. He's like, you have celiac and you have Hashimoto's, and we need to get you on thyroid medication. I had never had my antibodies tested before because nobody told me that was something that needed to be tested. I didn't know that until I researched it myself, that was something that I needed to know as far as an autoimmune condition. And when I was first tested, my antibodies were over 4,000. So for anybody that doesn't understand, like your antibodies should be 0. Like you shouldn't have antibodies unless your body's fighting something. That's where the antibodies come from. And so they were over 4,000, which meant my thyroid condition was through the roof. And so what he told me that day was validating, but also devastating, because I knew that I had these things, but now it's been validated that I, in fact, have them. But also, he said, I bet you that your antibodies were even higher at one point before you started taking care of yourself. And I can only imagine how bad they must have been and for how long. And that was just devastating to me, that I had done so many things to try and make myself feel better, and that I had been suffering for so long. And I will say, just as a caveat, my antibodies are at 0 now. So it's possible.
Yay. Yay.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you still have Graves and celiac, or are they gone?
Yeah. So both are in remission. They're still there. I still
Love it.
treat it like I have them. I'm not on medication for either. I will never
Wow.
eat gluten another day in my life. Again, I have a wheat allergy that's out there, which is very different. Allergies are very different than sensitivities and
That's
things
right.
like
They're
that.
two
So
different things. Yep.
yeah, so I will never eat them again for that reason. But yes, it's in remission. I'm not having any symptoms or anything like that, and so I've come completely full circle. Which I will say, during the process of my IAN, our health certification program, that's kind of when it shifted, as I realized that I was on the right track for myself, and I had met so many people through that process, through my own podcast, through my own clients, everybody that I was talking to whose story sounded identical to mine, to where they
Mm-hmm.
had been to so many doctors and they were suffering. And so it went from me just trying to kind of make myself healthy and doing the best I could for me and my family, to I can't let anyone else suffer.
Yeah,
If knowing the stuff that I know,
I get it.
I can't sit back and let other people go through this. And so it really shifted into me being out there wanting to help people and get as much information and help to people as I can. And so, that's why I ended up in my doctoral program. That's why I've done so many of the different things that I've done, is because knowing what I know and having gone through what I went through, I can't let people be
Mm-mm.
out there struggling when I
And
know that I can help
right,
them.
that
And
you can
so,
help them. It's great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to take the second half of the show. We're going to talk about definitions here of autoimmune, what an autoimmune disease is, and then we're going to talk about how the gut can relates to autoimmune diseases and what we can do to heal that and change it and cure it. And so we'll be right back after this word from my sponsor. Without looking at labels, do you actually know what is in the cleaning products that you use in your home? If you haven't addressed this yet, it's likely that you are spraying toxic and dangerous chemicals in your home. 3 common ingredients that you want to avoid at all costs are ammonia, fragrance, and bleach. These ingredients and chemicals can contribute to chronic respiratory problems, allergic reactions, allergies, cancer, hormonal issues, headaches, and more. So, what's the solution to a healthier, clean home for your family? Teas Organics All Purpose Cleaner and Room Sprays. Tea's products are formulated with the power of an essential oil blend. Her all-purpose cleaner gives you a clean surface, shower, toilet, or simply just use it to spot clean or dust, and all without harsh chemicals. And to make it even better, Tea's Organics all-purpose cleaner uses 100% organic essential oils and has a sweet yet spicy herbal aroma with hints of citrus. Imagine a fresh, inviting scent and sparkling clean home that you know is free from toxic, potentially harmful, and cancer-causing chemicals. I use these products, and I can personally attest to all of the above. And right now, enjoy a 15% discount by applying 15DEBBI, DEBI, to your order. So check out these amazing products by Tea's Organics that are healthy for you and your home. All right, we're back. Thank you for joining us today. We're talking about gut health and how it relates to autoimmune diseases and many other things. But we're going to dig into all of that right now with my guest, Brandi Muilenburg. And welcome, Brandi. If you want to ask a question or get involved in this part, if you're watching us live, you can do so by giving us a call here at 323-524-2599. So give us a call. One of the reasons why I have my guests tell their story in the beginning is because so many people can relate to it. And if you're going through something like Brandi just talked about, she went through, give us a call. Let's talk to you about it. We want to hear from you. All right, Brandi, what is an autoimmune disease? What's the definition of that? Name some autoimmune diseases, and then we'll talk about how to heal them.
Yeah. So there are actually over 100 named autoimmune diseases, and it's growing every day. So a new autoimmune disease is almost created, not really created, but found every single day and added to that list, which is crazy.
It's horrible.
Some of the autoimmune diseases are celiac, Hashimoto's, Graves, Crohn's. There's so many out there that affect your stomach. They affect your thyroid. They affect your lymphatic system, your nerves. You know, if you've had somebody that has rheumatoid arthritis, that's an autoimmune condition.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many out there.
Lupus.
And basically sorry, go ahead.
I said lupus.
Lupus, yes. There's so many out there. Actually, asthma is also considered an autoimmune disease now, which it did not used to be. And so what autoimmune disease is basically, as the simplest explanation, is it's your immune system in hyperdrive. So it's really trying to fight off something that's actually not even there to be fought for. So it's fighting your own tissue. So a lot of times what happens is we have a genetic component. So let's say your mom or sister or brother, someone in your family has a history of rheumatoid arthritis, of celiac, of Hashimoto's, any type of autoimmune disease. It doesn't matter.
Epigenetics, right? It's sort of our, go ahead.
Yeah.
Which we can control. Anyway, we'll get to that, but go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the important thing to know is just because your mom has Hashimoto's doesn't mean that you will. Mm-hmm. It just means that you may have those genes or a gene similar to that in your body. So we have this genetic component that has to be initiated. And so what I mean by that is we have to either turn the gene on or leave it turned off. When it's turned off, we're healthy. We aren't having symptoms. We aren't having issues. As soon as that gene is turned on, that's when the symptoms start happening. That's when our immune system goes into hyperdrive, and that's when the autoimmune disease is initiated. The things that will initiate or turn on those genes are environmental factors, such as, we noticed during the small break that we were talking a little bit about cleaners that are like safe, clean, removing those toxins, things like that. So there's so many environmental toxins that are in our environment, that are in our food, that are, mold, things like that we're constantly around. Some of them we can control and keep out of our homes and out of our environment. Some of them we can't because we live in cities, we live around cars. Some of that stuff we just can't get rid of, and we have to try and alleviate them as much as we can. So environmental toxins and things like that are one way that we can turn those genes on. The other way is actually through our diet and lifestyle. So if we're not sleeping, if we are eating fast food all the time and we're not giving our body the nutrition that it needs, if we are running a marathon but we're not nourishing our body in the way that we need to, we think that we're doing good things but we're actually stressing our body out and not supporting our adrenals. Those are things that can actually turn that switch on and initiate the autoimmune disease. What I tell most of my clients is, if you tell me your story, kind of like I just told you my story at the beginning of the show, if you tell me your history and your story, I can almost always pinpoint the exact moment, the exact event where your autoimmune disease was likely initiated. A lot of times it's a trauma, it's a childbirth, it's something that was very traumatic or hard on your body. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes is where that trigger starts. And so a lot of times we can actually find exactly where that was and kind of work backwards from there. But there's a lot of different kinds. And again, if your mom has Hashimoto's, you may actually end up with rheumatoid arthritis. If your dad has Crohn's disease, you may never get Crohn's, but you may get Hashimoto's. So it doesn't necessarily follow in line where every single person in the family gets the same autoimmune disease. The other thing that's important to note real quick is that once you have one autoimmune disease, if it is left untreated, you're more than likely to get 2 or more additional autoimmune diseases within that year. So they compound upon each other because your immune system is so worked up and in overdrive. So that's something really important to consider.
So, so people, like we were saying at the top, you know when something's not right. So the first thing to do is to identify that something's not right. And then the next thing to do is to really get diagnosed properly. And again, that would be through a functional medicine practitioner, I would guess. So the right tests are taken. So what do you suggest that people do right away if they suspect they're listening to the show? They can resonate with some of the symptoms that you're talking about, some of the things that, right away, if you're exhausted all the time, if you have gut issues, if you're not sleeping well, there are certain things that, aside from even the food that you eat, that are, signs that something's wrong. What do you suggest people do first and foremost?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, you know your body better than anyone else does. You will always know your body better than anyone else does. So listen to it. If something feels off, it probably is. And so listen to that and pay attention. So yes, labs are a great way to go. And if you don't have a functional medicine doctor in your area, because they aren't everywhere right now, there are online ones that you can reach out to. If your insurance doesn't cover them, there are other ways you can still see your primary care provider. Just go in prepared to ask for what you want to ask for. So what is really important is that you're getting the correct labs. So like I mentioned before, with my thyroid, I was having regular thyroid labs done, which was just TSH, T4 and T3. Nothing else was ever done. So I never had those antibodies or other tests done. So a couple of things that you can do is, if you have a really good primary care provider who is willing to listen to you, who's willing to do anything like lab work wise that you ask for, you can always Google functional labs and type in any symptom. You can type in thyroid, any of those things, and it'll give you a list of all the different functional labs to ask for. So those typically will include any antibody that's related to that specific symptom or that specific condition, all of the thyroid labs, all of the celiac related labs. And so you can take that to your doctor, that list of labs, and you can say, hey, I'm having these symptoms. I'm concerned that I might have one of these autoimmune conditions. Can we order some of these labs and have it checked out? And that's perfectly acceptable too. So if you have a functional medicine provider, go to them. They know all of that stuff already and they'll do it. But you also feel very empowered to take that list to your doctor and ask for what you need. The other thing that I really recommend is to get a gut health test, which is a stool test. You can order those online. You can have your provider order them for you. You can go to a functional medicine doctor and have them ordered for you. Because what that will do is it'll give you all of the data related to your gut health. So your bacteria composition, whether you're having leaky gut, whether you have dysbiosis, all that information will come. But it also will give you some information as to if you're having nutritional deficiencies. So if you're having a vitamin D deficiency, those things will show up in there too. And so it's such a powerful tool. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have someone skilled in that to interpret it for you. Some of them come with really good interpretations that'll tell you, hey, this is low. These are the things that you can do for it being low. But you want to make sure that you have a provider that understands what that means and can help interpret it and lead you in the right direction to heal those. But that's the best way to get answers on what exactly is going on in your body. The data is so important, and never let anyone tell you that your symptom is nothing, because our bodies are meant to be healthy and active and functional, and we aren't actually just supposed to suffer with symptoms just because we're getting older and we're tired. That's not real.
Yeah, I hate hearing that. And there's always such a big conversation that goes on around women and hormone health and going through menopause, perimenopause, and menopause, and then men go through a version of menopause too. But so some of the symptoms get sloughed off to that, and you'll be fine. You'll get through it, and in fact, you have to get into the hormone balancing, and unless you have certain labs done, you can't, because it could be gut related too, because the gut and hormones are related directly to each other. And even though we're losing hormones as we age, and women do go through menopause, it isn't normal to feel bad. And if you're feeling bad during that time, there's a way to balance it and pull it back up. And without knowing what's going on in your body individually, you're not sure what to do. I mean, there's some standard things that we can do, through diet, of course, and exercise and sleep, the three most important things, and hydration. That's a good start. But then there are the other nitpicky things that we need to get into for our own bodies. You threw out some words, a couple of them. If you could just, give the listeners a little definition. You threw out dysbiosis, which I talked about at the top of the show, and leaky gut. What is that, and what does it mean?
Yeah. So dysbiosis and leaky gut are two very different things, but they actually happen in conjunction with each other more often than not. And so what happens is and this can happen even before you get an autoimmune condition, but a lot of times if you go to the doctor, or if you came to me as a client, you said, hey, by the way, I'm diagnosed with Crohn's disease. The first thing I'm going to think is your gut's imbalanced, which is both leaky gut and dysbiosis. So leaky gut is when our gut lining, so when I talk about the gut, it's not just the stomach. A lot of people think of their gut as just the stomach itself. Your gut is actually your entire digestional tract. So from your mouth all the way to the other end, that whole entire tract is part of your gut. And each part of that has a major role in digestion, in absorbing certain nutrients and vitamins and minerals and pulling those out of the food that you eat. Every single section has such a huge role in every ounce of that. And so when we talk about your gut, it's important to understand we're talking about your whole digestive tract. And so what happens with leaky gut is you get so much inflammation and so much dysbiosis happening that the lining of your gut, which if you think about it, is your mouth all the way to the other end, is kind of like it's kind of like a tunnel through your body, right? Mm-hmm. So the outside world is here and the outside world is down there. So it's like this internal tunnel that goes through your body. And so that lining is the only protective barrier you have from anything that you ingest, from getting to your blood supply, from getting into any part of your body. That's organs. Your protective barrier. So what happens is it gets leaky. And the reason that we call it that is because those tight junctions, or those cells that are within that lining, become loose and not tight. And so particles that shouldn't be able to get through that barrier are able to leak through. And so when they start leaking into your bloodstream, when they start leaking into other vascular areas, just into your body cavity in general, obviously your immune system jumps up because something is there that's not supposed to be. It's heightened, inflammation increases, and again, your immune system is on hyperdrive. So that's why we call it a leaky gut. It's because your protective barrier has gotten holes in it. So if you think of like a huge castle that has like big walls around it, and somebody has shot a cannon through it, back in the medieval times, like a big cannonball went through it, and now there's a hole that's really big in that wall. Anything that wanted to could crawl through that hole. So that's kind of the way that we think about leaky gut. And so when that happens, though, the lining not only do things that aren't supposed to get through, but things that are, like your vitamins, your minerals, all of those things start having issues being absorbed because there's so much inflammation that barrier becomes so damaged that you're not absorbing vitamins and minerals in the way that you're supposed to. And so it becomes very ineffective. So you start becoming very deficient in certain vitamins or minerals because your body just can't absorb it because it's fighting all the things that shouldn't be there.
And these are vitamins and minerals and nutrients that our body needs in order for us to stay disease-free. We're talking also cancers and heart disease and any autoimmune disease, which you said there are hundreds. And so we in general should be doing certain things, and it always comes back to starting with diet. So in some of the time that we have left, I want to talk about that. What should we be eating? I know we want to talk about healthy fats and talk about your olive oil and how that came about and how people can get it. But healthy fats are really important to everybody. We all need it because it's part of digestion for us in being able to keep the gut healthy. And what else should we be eating, and what should the average person be doing to be preventative, or if they think that they might be fighting something to because you are the perfect example of somebody who healed themselves through protocol and food and lifestyle changes. What should people be doing?
Yes. So 98% of people who have autoimmune conditions are also deficient in vitamin D. So I always tell people start with vitamin D, whether that's taking a really good vitamin D supplement or eating foods with vitamin D in them. So vitamin D is a great place to start because our bodies require it and we just don't get enough of it. Healthy fats are amazing. And the reason for that is they help to heal leaky gut. So as I just talked about those barriers, they actually help to close those junctions. So healthy fats are really great at healing your gut. Also, I've had clients with very high cholesterol that are just struggling. When we've increased their healthy fat intake, we were able to bring their cholesterol levels down. So fantastic for your heart, for your cholesterol. There's so many wonderful things that it does for inflammation that healthy fats is my number two. So it's always vitamin D and healthy fats are, if you're only going to do two things, that's what I want you to do. They're just so magical, which is why I started my olive oil company in the first place, is because it's just such an amazing ingredient and substance that it really does so many things for our body. There's a reason that it has been around for centuries. It's because they knew before we knew that it was fantastic. So that's why it's still here. There are other supplements or food that you can eat that really help support your gut. And so we didn't really talk about dysbiosis much, but what that means is the bacteria in your gut gets out of balance. So you have good bacteria and bad bacteria. And sometimes the bad bacteria takes over the good bacteria. And then you're just kind of in trouble because it can't figure itself out. And so if we're eating, you've probably heard eat the rainbow. And that's true, because if we are eating the rainbow, meaning you're eating fruits and vegetables in every single color. So eggplants, which are purple, red bell peppers, you're eating orange carrots, you're eating green spinach, you're eating the rainbow every single day. That is going to help feed those good bacteria and help build them up so that the bad bacteria stays minimal, which is where we want it to be. You'll never get completely away from having bad bacteria. We need it just as much as we need the good bacteria, but we need very small amounts of it.
Does probiotics help with that? And there are probiotic foods like crucifers, vegetables, cabbages, things like that, kimchi, sauerkraut, stuff like that are probiotic foods. But do you recommend that people be taking a pre and a probiotic to really get the good bacteria in the gut?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. There's a fine balance with that, though. If your gut's completely out of balance, sometimes taking the pre and probiotic can actually make your gastrointestinal symptoms worse. Just because you have to calm down everything that's happening in there. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have someone take a very small dose of pre and probiotics until we can get their gut to calm down a bit. And then we slowly increase it to a normal daily dose of pre and probiotics. But absolutely, it is what in the long run is really going to keep those bacteria healthy and doing what they're supposed to do, because the bacteria are what actually breaks your food down so that your body can absorb all of those wonderful nutrients. And so we need them, and we need them to be healthy. So absolutely, pre and probiotics are something that I take daily. Every single day, it's something that I recommend everyone to take daily. And then, of course, as everyone knows, because you've probably heard this a million times, you have to reduce processed foods. You have to reduce things like fast food. You have to reduce sugary drinks, because unfortunately, those things feed the bad bacteria. It's like gourmet mealtime for them. And so it allows them to become overabundant while the good bacteria is killed off, basically. So you have to really reduce that as much as possible.
Yeah, big time. And that's important. And when you say eat the rainbow, we're talking about fresh fruits and vegetables. That's where the color comes in naturally. We're not talking about processed food. I say the number one thing, if you just want to start, and you're going to feel better if you just do this, take out processed food, drink half your body weight in ounces in fresh filtered water. Those two things right there are going to make a difference. And if you still, like you said, sometimes you just need to clean up the gut until you start feeling better. And then that's where it comes in with a functional medicine doctor that can really take the labs, work with you, and get down to the nitty gritty. So important. Just, gut health is all about longevity and living a high quality of life. Finding your joy and happiness comes with feeling good. If you don't feel good, that's why we have an epidemic of depression in this country, and really it's because of the way we take care of ourselves. Not because, yes, there's depressive things going on around us, but there'd be a lot less depressive things going on around if everybody that's causing a lot of these horrible acts that are happening throughout the world and the country were taking care of themselves. They wouldn't be so angry. That's my take on it. We wouldn't have such an angry world. It's just foods. It all starts with how you take care of yourself. In the couple of minutes we have left, let us know what kind of programs you have, how people can work with you. Give out your website. I know you have 2 of them. I want you to talk about your olive oil really quick, and we have to do it all in the next 2 minutes. So,
So you can find me at functionallyautoimmune.com. That's my website for my health coaching side. I do free consultations, so you can go in there, you can sign up, and we can have a one-on-one conversation. So you can reach me there. You can find me under Brandi Muilenburg on Instagram. I share a lot of free information there. So you can follow on my own autoimmune journey. I share all kinds of information there, so you can find me there. My olive oil is Caesarea oleo di oliva. So you can go to my website there to purchase, find recipes, all of that information for the olive oil. It is direct from, again, my partners in Italy. It is literally tree to bottle. It comes straight off of the branches, straight into the bottle, straight to me from Italy. So you can't get any fresher, and I only sell current season. And the reason for that is because it's so rich and full of antioxidants and polyphenols. And that's what I want to get into everyone's kitchens. So again, I also have an Instagram for that. It's called Caesarea oleo di oliva as well. So and they're connected to each other. So if you find me in one place, you should be able to find me in the other places. And I'm happy to answer any questions, work with you, and do anything that I can to help you out.
Oh, fabulous. That's so fabulous. And thank you. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. We'll do a follow-up show and dig in, a little deeper. But I thank you for your time and giving us, the rundown here. You guys, you're in charge of your health, so you can really make a difference if you dig into how you eat and how you take care of yourself. And I highly recommend that you start today. So, Brandi, I have all of my guests leave us with a final thought or words of wisdom. So what can you say to end us?
Yeah, I said this already, but this is always my best advice for anybody is your body better than anyone else. So listen to it, trust it, and do everything that you can, because it wants to support you just as much as you want to support it. So if you're there for each other, you'll have a long, healthy life.
Ah, fabulous. Thank you again for your time and your expertise. And I want to thank you, my audience, for joining us today. Go ahead and make a comment. Ask a question. It's post-show, but we will get back to you and give it a little like. We always love to hear from you. I want to hear from what your thoughts are about today's show. And I have lots of things up on my YouTube channel, so go ahead over there if you have a question about health and wellness. And again, I want to thank you for joining us, but I want to tell you to keep going out and finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. Bye, everybody. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.